Well, good morning.
Good morning.
I really appreciate you all being here. This is an illustrious group. We have superintendents, many of them too many to name, actually, I believe. I will call out that we have Bessie board members here as well. I see Jay Gio, Chaz Romer, Jane Smith, Lottie Beebe. I see Judy Moranti. Did I see Connie Bradford somewhere? And I saw Mary Harris, and I saw Holly Bofi. Thank you all for being here. Bessie, thank you. We have a Bessie meeting after this, so we tried to schedule it around Bessie members' ability to be here. I see we have the Board of Regents. Dr. Burns is here as well. Thank you to the Board of Regents. We have our teachers' union representatives here. I know we have a lot of district staff. I also know we have a lot of academics and staff from the colleges of education across our state, which are thrilled to be here. And so I thank you all for coming. This is the second such meeting. And this is really just a dialogue, and it's a dialogue about an issue that I know the Board of Regents and the Bessie Board are both looking at in different ways slightly, but at the same time our processes are linked, and I view this as a partnership between higher education, our alternate preparation program providers, and our school systems and our charter schools. So I thank everybody for coming into one room to address what really might be the most fundamental question we have in our profession and in our industry, which is who are our educators and what are they prepared to do? What are their capacities? And how can we make that the richest experience possible so that they can help kids for a lifelong career in public education and private education? So we're very blessed to have the opportunity to talk today. I'm going to pass quickly to Assistant Superintendent Hannah Deach and Julie Stevenson, who run the Believe and Prepare program. But I first want to thank the esteemed panelists that are behind me. They really are the ones you'll be hearing from the most today. We have a set of questions for them, but then I want to prepare you because those questions are then going to be asked of you. And we're hoping that this will be a kind of a back and forth between the audience and our panelists. The purpose of Believe and Prepare is to make practice before we make policy and to try to identify across the state what are the best possible ways of improving, reconceiving, designing, innovating regarding educator preparation, and then to try to think about how do we grow that rather than to make policy for the entire state and then ask everybody to conform. And this is just an ongoing dialogue as part of that process. So I thank you so much for being here. I'm going to ask Hannah if she would come in and start the presentation. But please know that within the next 20 minutes or so, you will be called upon to respond to a very specific set of questions. And we're looking to hear your opinions just as we're looking to hear from our esteemed panel today. So thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you. And thank you so much to all of you who are here today to join this conversation. I got to meet many of you through the Believe and Prepare program, and also earlier this morning. I just thank you for being here on this cold spring morning. Before we get too much further, I do want to make sure that our panelists have an opportunity to introduce yourselves. As the superintendent mentioned, these panelists are school system and preparation program leaders who are developing innovative practices in teacher preparation and licensure through our Believe and Prepare pilot program. We'll spend the majority of our time today hearing from them, hearing about what they're learning and developing through the Believe and Prepare program. So I'll just turn it to you all to introduce yourselves.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Cross. I am the Dean of Relay Graduate School of Education, New Orleans. Our program focuses on teacher certification and also a Master's of Arts in Teaching with a specialization by content area.
Good morning. I'm Patsy Jenkins from Alexandria. Right now, I serve as chair of the Education Department at LSUA. Previously, and with a lot more years than I will admit to, I have served in pre-K-12 education, both as principals, teachers, and I retired some years back as superintendent of schools in Rapides. So I have the perspective of both ends of this kind of in mind.
And if you all could just press your microphone button when you are speaking, that'll enable the folks to hear you.
Good morning. I'm Ben Cleven. I'm the CEO of New Orleans College Prep. We're a charter school organization in New Orleans. We operate 3 RSD charter schools, pre-K to 12th grade, in the Central City area. And we have a partnership with Relay, Graduate School of Education, to embed a coach in all of the programming that our first-year teachers are receiving from Relay. and then take that back to fully align the day-to-day coaching that teachers are getting.
Good morning. I'm Ken Ortling, principal of Heimbach High School in St. Charles Parish. We currently have a student teacher under the Believe and Prepare pilot program.
Hi, I'm Morgan Ripsky with Collegiate Academies. We operate 3 charter high schools in New Orleans, and we currently have a partnership with the New Teacher Project to do first-year teacher coaching in partnership with some internal coaches.
Good morning. I'm Don Schillinger. I'm the interim dean at the College of Education at Louisiana Tech University. I'm very happy to be here today on a sunshine-filled day, and I didn't have to de-ice my car this morning, so I'm very, very grateful for that. We're part of the Believe and Prepare pilot, and I'm very encouraged right now about all the wonderful opportunities we have for collaboration, as Mr. White was speaking about. The opportunity to join in connections with all the different people that have one goal in mind, and that is the high quality teacher preparation. So I'm very pleased to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for you all to be here today to talk with us. And I'd also like to recognize Dr. Burns, Associate Commissioner at the Board of Regents, who we're very happy to have you here today and to have you as a collaborator in our work with us. Also, Julie Stevenson, as Superintendent mentioned, will lead our panel discussion later this afternoon. So what brings us here today is our shared commitment to ensuring that our students are ready for a college or career when they graduate high school. We know that Louisiana's jobs market is changing, and that Louisiana's jobs will require our students to achieve a 2- or 4-year degree after high school. In order to do that, and in order to prepare our students for that jobs reality, we're raising our expectations for what we expect of students. We're raising our expectations from basic to mastery gradually over the coming years. In order to be successful in raising that expectation and preparing students for that expectation, teachers are a really crucial component of student success. We know that teacher quality is one of the most important factors affecting student success. And we know that in order for teachers to be successful, teacher preparation is an important component. Teacher preparation experiences, we know, have a great impact on teachers' readiness for their first days in the classroom. Knowing that, we've spent some time over the past year speaking with teachers, principals, school system leaders, preparation program faculty, about how we can improve upon the work that's been done over the past 10 years in teacher preparation and licensure. What we've learned is that there are some opportunities for us to build on the work of the past decade. Specifically, what we hear are that school system leaders have challenges finding enough teachers to meet demand in all subjects and grade levels. We also know that preparation program faculty are having challenges finding enough classrooms for student teachers to do their student teaching practice. Finally, what we've heard is that new teachers don't consistently feel prepared for the realities of a classroom in their first year of teaching. And I'm seeing some nodding heads out there. I know that many of you applied for Believe and Prepare grants in this first and second round, and many of you have expressed and validated these concerns. So we're just very excited to be working as a community on these issues to improve teacher preparation and licensure for teachers. What's also encouraging is that Bessie and the Board of Regents have the ability to shift expectations for teacher preparation and licensure, and indeed have done so over the past 10 years through the redesign work that Dr. Burns has led and that teacher preparation programs have led over the past decade. Specifically, the Board of Regents is responsible for decisions related to the approval of degree programs at Louisiana's public colleges and universities. So these aren't just education programs. The Board of Regents is responsible for approving all degree programs at public colleges and universities. Bessie, on the other hand, is responsible for determining what it takes to earn a teaching certificate in Louisiana. Bessie is also responsible for determining whether a preparation program, a teacher preparation program, should be allowed to operate in our state and whether they should be allowed to continue operating in our state. So that brings us to our conversation today. Through a conversation with our Believe and Prepare school and district leaders and preparation program leaders, we hope to talk about ways that we can learn from the promising practices that they're developing so that we can answer these questions about how to grow their practices statewide. Specifically, we hope to talk about what should qualify a teacher preparation program to train teachers in Louisiana. What coursework should be required? What should student teaching experiences look like? How should they be structured? How should partnerships between preparation programs and school systems be structured in order to become approved to operate in our state? We'll also talk about what should qualify a preparation program to continue operating in our state. What data should be reported? And what feedback should preparation programs get on their work and their success with teachers who are preparing to teach? We're just so excited to have the Believe and Prepare pilot participants here today to lead us through a discussion about what they have learned. And we are specifically going to talk about the ways in which these preparation programs have begun to meet school staffing needs through different approaches to recruitment and admissions. We'll talk a little bit about how these programs together are developing essential skills and knowledge through new approaches to teacher preparation coursework. And finally, we'll hear from this panel about how they are providing candidates with ample time to practice in schools alongside highly effective mentor teachers. As you can see, this first cohort of Believe and Prepare hails from across the state. The majority of school systems have decided to partner in this cohort with a university-based preparation program, although some, like St. Bernard Parish, are starting their own preparation program, and others are partnering with programs that are not university-based. Many of the pilot leaders are here with us today, but some of the teachers and principals who are participating in the Believe and Prepare program aren't here today. But we are fortunate to be able to share their reflections with you through a short video. We're happy to do this, and after the video, Julie will talk you through the next phase of Believe and Prepare, our second cohort, and then start our panel discussion. So thank you again for being here today, and here we go.
Hi, I'm John White. Thanks so much for joining us today. I assume you're here because you believe, like I do, that the most important factor in the success of a school and in the students' learning within that school is the preparation and the capabilities of the teacher who works with those children every day. This last summer, we surveyed teachers across the state, college professors, and school superintendents and principals to learn a little bit more about the preparation of teachers across our state. And what we learned is that school systems want to play a greater role in the preparation of teacher candidates prior to their becoming full-time teachers. We also learned that teachers wish they had had more time in the classroom before they became full-time educators. Believe and Prepare is the state's leading effort to have the most innovative educators in colleges, preparation programs, and in our schools develop programs to provide teachers with a full year's worth of in-classroom preparation in partnership together, school systems and preparation programs, so that every educator in our state comes into the classroom as an effective full-time teacher. I thank you so much for being here to learn a little bit more about that program. This year, 7 pilots are up and running. Next year, at least 7 more will join them. Now let's hear from some of those pilot participants themselves to hear the great work that's going on in Believe and Prepare classrooms around our state.
This program has given us an opportunity to really reflect upon what are the practices that we believe are the best practices in classrooms. It also has given us an opportunity to start asking ourselves, are we in line with what universities are teaching about best practices? And what it's allowing us to do is to question our own best practices and also to have the conversations with universities to say, what are the practices that we need to be working on together? I'm not so sure what the best practices are that they're teaching in the university. We just haven't had that close-knit relationship or time to talk about what's going on in the universities. And now I feel that we have this open communication to say, wow, what are y'all doing to teach students how to read, or to teach students how to write, how to manage your most severe disciplined students? and they're able to ask us, what are you doing across your district to build a culture of caring in your schools? So that two-way communication is opening up to a different level that it never had before.
Districts all have their unique needs. Believe and Prepare offered an opportunity for us to be able to individualize a program and also offer the opportunity for collaboration and meaningful communication with university partners. The Believe and Prepare grant allowed us to really focus on a particular critical area of need we had at the time. And we certainly would encourage every district to participate in this type of program to not only address critical needs, but actually to play an active role in teacher preparation.
Discussions. The next part is help keep the group on task.
For first-year teachers, it's kind of like shell shock. Like their first day, it's like, well, this isn't anything like student teaching. I mean, it is, to have that total responsibility of management, planning, and then actually teaching, there's really no way you can replicate that 100%, but this does give them so much more than what they've had in the past. And hopefully, that will cause our teachers not to leave the profession. It's a hard job, and some of them just give up before really they even get started. So I'm hopeful that we will retain those teachers that are passionate about what they're doing. We need them desperately.
Good. I know that a lot of teachers quit after their first couple of years of teaching because I think they're frustrated and they simply don't know what to do, especially as far as classroom management goes. And I know that there are a lot of things that had I not been there at the beginning of school, if those things would have happened next year when I was beginning my first year of teaching, I probably would have been to the point of frustration to where I thought, I don't know if I can do this, but now that I've been able to be with someone who is very experienced and see how she handled those things, I feel so much more confident to begin my first year teaching and not have it be so frustrating and so hectic, because I feel like I'm much more prepared to deal with those things because I've seen how to handle them.
So it's really exciting to go out in the field and get to talk to these aspiring teachers and their mentors and the school leaders about the work they're doing, because they're all equally passionate about the potential impact of these Believe and Prepare partnerships. In order to continue to grow this work, we had the opportunity to release another application in December and saw a great increase in the interest in the work. We went from 22 applications in cohort 1 to 28 applications in cohort 2 and saw a pretty good increase in the number of school districts who wanted to be involved in the work, and also a great increase in the number of preparation programs who wanted to be involved in the work. So we're very, very excited to select this next round of pilots to continue to see this work scale across the state and impact more teachers. The timeline for this selection is that they will be announced in late March or early April, and then will begin their work in April, planning for the summer activities, and then begin to start doing the work in June and carry it through the school year next year. I do want to take a minute, though, and just acknowledge those of you in the room who have spent time in developing a Cohort 2 application. If you would stand or raise your hand if you participated in the creation of a Cohort 2 application, we just want to take the time to say thank you. Thank you all, too, for being here and taking the time out to join the conversation today. We're going to shift now into the real reason why we're all here, which is to explore how to continue to grow this work across the state so that every aspiring teacher has the opportunity to have the experience that Emily Allen described, so they all feel successful as they begin their first year in the classroom. Just to revisit what Hannah spoke about briefly, this conversation is going to center around a few things, but I just wanted to clarify. Bessie has the responsibility to establish the expectations for teacher certification, and those expectations drive the design of preparation program experiences. In addition, Bessie has the responsibility to initially approve or qualify a preparation program to begin to certify teachers. And then, in addition to that, Bessie also has the responsibility to continue to approve those programs to operate based on the results that they get with their teacher candidates once they enter the teaching profession. And so we're really here to talk today about how that process needs to work in order to support the work of Believe and Prepare across the state and in every preparation program. In talking with all of you, we realized that there were some policy opportunities, and so we brought those to you at the first meeting in December, and we discussed those with you all. And as a result of those discussions, have identified a starting point for the factors that should influence preparation program design and the certification requirements that are in policy. And so those are organized in these 4 ways, and they all came out of the conversations and the work that we've done with you all to determine what is most important in teacher preparation. So the first is program experience. The second deals with the workforce challenge, and then the last 2 are involving the impact on students and then the impact on the profession as a whole. I want to give you an overview for each of these 4, but then we'll move into an in-depth discussion of each component and turn to the panel to have them offer their thoughts and then ask you to contribute and engage in a back and forth conversation and start the dialogue about how these factors need to influence those decisions that Bessie is responsible for making. So just to give you a brief overview, program experience centers on what a teacher should need to learn in order to be prepared in the classroom, to teach in the classroom, and also what kind of practice requirements should be required. As a piece of that, then how should preparation programs be designed? There are a lot of questions around what this should look like, and there are some options that have emerged from the Believe and Prepare work, and this is going to be a really great conversation to have with you all because the Believe and Prepare applications and also the work have really identified some ways that preparation can improve or change. And so that conversation will focus on how program design can change. The second component or factor actually comes out of the school system sharing with us the challenges that they're having in meeting school staffing needs. There are critical shortages. Sometimes those critical shortages are in all areas, depending on where the school system is located in the state. Other times, those critical shortages are in specific certifications areas, like special education or secondary math or science. And so we want to explore with you all how preparation programs can partner with school systems to better meet those school systems' staffing needs. Thirdly, growth in student learning focuses on the impact of those teachers once they leave the program and enter the classroom and the impact that they have on student learning. So we want to explore with you all and discuss with you all the ways that that has been reported over the last decade as a result of the work that Dr. Burns has done and has been doing over the last decade to report on this. And then also how we can continue to do this work and explore other ways to understand the impact that preparation program graduates are having on students in the classroom. Finally, this is a topic that comes through in every conversation we have, whether it be with preparation program faculty, with advocates, with teachers themselves, with school system leaders, which is that the prestige of the profession is affected by preparation experiences and also who enters those preparation experiences. So we want to explore with you all the ways that preparation programs and school systems can partner to have a positive impact on the prestige of the profession in Louisiana. So we'll get started with program experience. There's a real challenge with program experience that we've learned about as we've talked with school system leaders in preparation programs. We all concede that there are essential knowledge and skills and experiences that every new teacher needs to have had in order to be effective in the classroom. But there's a concern that if we are too narrow in the way we view these experiences, that it limits a preparation program and the way that they're able to design these experiences for their candidates. So in order to address these challenges, we want to explore with you these questions today. And the first one is really to talk about and center on what is it that new teachers need to know and be able to do, and therefore what should preparation programs be expected to teach. And to start the conversation, I'd actually like to start with our 2015 High School Principal of the Year, Ken Ortling, to ask him what he looks for as he hires a new teacher. What are the knowledge and skills and experiences that he hopes that they have had so that they can be effective in his school?
Sure, and I think much like you saw in the video, we kind of focus on three main areas. Just as the teachers, as I'm watching the video, I'm thinking absolutely. I think first and foremost is a framework of effective instructional practices that are truly implemented, not just known about or read about or studied on, but truly implemented in a classroom to see the effectiveness of the instruction and to be able to modify instruction throughout a school year. It's so easy sometimes to study on an instructional strategy, but to put it in action, to put it in place, and to receive feedback from not only a mentor, teacher, but also an administrator, I think is very important. So coming in with those skills. Classroom management. I don't know which one is more important sometimes, classroom management or effective instruction. They're tied hand in hand with each other. It's very important that our teachers come in with the skill to be able to carefully and closely manage a classroom and create that positive learning environment that you're looking for throughout a school. And then finally, organizing strategies for an entire school year. It's very difficult coming out of school to think that here you go, I'm fresh out of high school or going into college, I want to be a science teacher, and then first day of school, here you go, plan for a whole year of physical science. Okay, it's difficult. The ability to plan, to break down our standards in organized fashion throughout a school year, based on experience, not just being in the classroom for a shortened period of time. So I would say those three are the major points: framework of effective instruction, effective classroom management, and the organizing strategies for an entire school year.
Ben, in your experience as a CEO of New Orleans College Prep, what experiences do you want your new teachers to have had before they come to you?
So I also have kind of a triumvirate of principles I think are important. I would break it down to practice, authentic practice, alignment of content between the school and the provider, and student outcome measurement and assessment. And so kind of breaking that down just a bit, what we've seen to be most effective in terms of the experiences that best develop teachers is when teachers have the opportunity to practice. And we can think about this in every other context in our lives: how we learn to ride a bike, how we learn an instrument. We can see it corollaries in other professions, in the legal profession with apprenticeships, medicine with residencies. There are examples all around us of how people learn a craft, and it requires practice and a lot of relays trainings. They use the term muscle memory. It's building that muscle memory to be able to learn a new skill and practice it effectively so that students learn. Second, it's about aligning at a very basic level, just aligning the content that teachers are receiving from a program and the professional development they're receiving from a school. If they're getting two different messages, if they're learning two different things from the provider and the school, the learning for that teacher is not being maximized. And then finally, I think we just have to get better at tracking the ultimate impact that a teacher preparation program is having on students. And we've got a lot more to do, particularly, I think, in comparing teacher preparation programs and assessing what are the norms for what kind of impact teachers are having in their first year, what programs are meeting those norms, and what can we learn from those programs to incorporate everywhere.
Jennifer, you partner with Ben in your Believe and Prepare program. I wanted to know if you had anything to add to what he had to contribute about the experiences candidates should have.
Sure. I also think about this in terms of just competency-based learning. So the entire program of Relay, both the certification, the master's program, our one-year residency, which we will launch this summer, is a complete competency-based program. The expectation is that teachers are demonstrating proficiency in coursework and student achievement in the classroom. When we think about proficiency in coursework, we actually think about competency of the skill. So your in-person session with me is actually practice practice-based instruction, your assessment is competency-based. We're not making the assumption that you've read something about checking for understanding and now you know how to do it, but rather you are doing some work before you come to me. In live sessions with me, you are standing and delivering, you are practicing, you are getting real-time feedback from me, from other Relay faculty, and then the expectation is for you to be able to go into your classroom and demonstrate that. You go into your classroom, you record yourself doing it, you upload your video as your assessment. So there's no doubt in our minds, there's no assumptions that we can make about whether or not you can have this particular type of impact on students, but we know full well, both from seeing you do it in our sessions with us and seeing you do it in your classrooms and on video. And so I think to Ben's point, there has to be a prioritization of practice. This idea that assuming what teachers know when they leave either undergraduate or other providers is not sufficient. And I would argue for anyone that has children, the thought of having your teacher think that they know something as opposed to actually being able to see them do something is a completely different ballgame.
So at this point, I want to open it to the audience in order to let you guys engage in a dialogue, and you can feel free to ask any of the panel members questions or offer perspectives or just open the questions to the room. I will work this side of the room with the microphone, and so if you have a comment, please do raise your hand, and Hannah has a microphone for this side. So just want to see if anybody has reactions, would like to add anything or contribute to the conversation.
I do. I'd like to add to that. We've heard a lot about mechanics and so forth and delivering lessons and so forth. And in teacher preparation programs, I believe that's an output and an outcome. But one of the things that's extremely important for us in educating our future teachers is that they have some theoretical constructs about why they do things. An understanding of the content area, a deep and rich understanding of the content area, and then a deep, rich understanding of how to deliver that content area. Plus, a really deep understanding, again, of cognitive theory, so they know why people learn what they learn, and also can identify if students are learning and what processes they can put in place to modify or to intervene to help a student learn. So all those things are what becomes a synthesis of knowledge and provides context for these students so they can use the mechanics and the applications and so forth, and so have some sort of framework to justify that. I think that also provides them with a whole lot more meaning to what they do, and provides, again, some language with theoreticians and so forth later to improve the field. Because one of the things that we want to do as a teacher preparation program is not only train future educators, but improve the field of learning and so forth. That's part of what we do. So I think that's an important part of this also. Thank you.
This just, I think it kind of tags on to what Don was talking about, but it seems to me that looking at the challenge, just the way it's presented, their essential knowledge, skills, and experiences, what's left out is the whole dispositional aspect. And I think we know that both assessment of dispositions and the development of the disposition for teachers to be professional, for them to be caring, for them to desire to be agents of change, and, you know, to the desire, the disposition to become content experts and to grow in their profession. I kind of think that whole idea is missing even from the way you've presented the challenge.
Anybody like to add or have a question? Okay, so the second question.
Julie, we have someone back here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Hi, my name is Brooke Montine. I'm an education professor. One question I wanted to bring up to just consider as we discuss this is affordability for teacher candidates. I am a huge proponent as well for as much student teaching as possible, but at my college, many of my teacher candidates are young mothers, young parents, and it's really difficult for them to take a semester off of work and be full-time embedded in the classroom. So the idea of going to a year of student teaching, which I am a big proponent of, we just have to consider how will they afford it.
Thank you.
thinking about how those expectations should inform those decisions that Bessie is responsible for making, we asked the question, so given that, what should qualify preparation programs to train teachers in Louisiana? How should those initial operation recommendations be made, and on what basis? So I wanted to offer Patsy Jenkins the opportunity to answer this question and then open it to you all for discussion and exploration.
Thank you. And I don't like mics, so if I forget to turn it on, remind me. I think when we look at the entire educational program, for years we held the students accountable. Then after a while we moved into holding teachers accountable, and then we said, well, if the school doesn't have a really neat principal, that's why it's not successful. And for too long, we have avoided the issue of teacher preparation. I say that's where it all begins. I have been a principal. I've been a director of personnel. I know what it is to go out there and look for teachers, and they're not prepared. Once we get them in the classroom, we can't keep them. And so I think when we look at the selection of colleges or universities that produce our teachers, that provide teacher preparation, we have to look for distinctive characteristics. And the first characteristic we had to look at was our own faculty. Do we have a faculty that has a mindset that's in steel that says, but we've always taught this course. I have always taught this course. It is my course. We don't dare take that out of the curriculum because, and not understanding or not being able to understand that there are some standalone courses that lend themselves far better to being embedded in the field experience, i.e. the residency program. That's one of the first things we did, was to get faculty buy-in. They had to change a whole mindset of how they were going to work with these young people. First of all, as we teach the standalone courses, we found that once a student passed, let's say the classroom management course, maybe they did that in their sophomore year, and they put it on the shelf, been there, done that, passed that one. And then 2 years later, they find themselves in a classroom ready to teach, and they didn't really remember a lot that they had learned when they were in that course. Our concept has moved completely from the standalones, in many cases, to embedment. We take classroom management, working with students with exceptionalities, and a number of other courses, and embed them not only in the residency program, but in every single methods course we teach. For example, if I'm going out for the first time to a school, for my very first experience with the methods course, my professor is going to look at a lesson plan that I designed where I have identified students in that class that have issues, whether it's behavioral or academic or whatever, and then they have to address in writing for us how they would take care of that particular situation. Then when they come back into the classroom, we walk through every phase of how you would successfully address that problem. When 1,000 years ago, when I was a student teacher, okay, I did my student teaching in the spring. And of course, my first job started in the fall. Well, in Miss Effie Berry's class at Northwestern, every kid knew what to do. They knew routine, they knew how to line up, they knew how to do their test papers. And when I got that little group of urchins in the fall, I looked at them thinking, what's wrong with these kids? My kids in student teaching didn't act this way. Well, of course they didn't. Ms. Berry had had them for 4.5 months before I got there, and they understood all of that. That's what our young teachers are missing, and that's what we firmly believe at LSUA, that we can give our young people. They will walk out of our classrooms ready to teach. We're a firm believer in the extended classroom time in the one-year residency program. And in order to do that without increasing the hours required for the degree, of course, we have subtracted out the course hours that we have embedded, so that students understand that they're not going to be first spending any more money, and of course that's their first concern. You know, what is this going to cost me to be here for a whole year in student teaching? And we also have shown them where they're not going to have to take a lot more hours. But the second, to me, very critical part for a university to have such a program is to have a true partnership with a school system. Now, we're centrally located in Alexandria, and so we serve a number of surrounding parishes. But I will be honest that most of our students come from the Rapides Parish area. So it was logical for us in the beginning to partner with Rapides Parish. We're fortunate. We have wonderful, cooperative people that we went to in the very beginning. I sat down with one of the assistant superintendents. By the way, he is so supportive that he is here today, and Dr. Joe Frion, I appreciate that more than you know. He also adjuncts for us, so he knows what we're doing. We know what he's doing. Since I came from that school system before I came to LSUA, I understand some of their needs. Everything that we have done, I have gone and talked to these people, or they have come to the university and talked to us. They were in on the beginning of the writing of the grant. They have been free to make suggestions. And I think that partnership is absolutely critical to the success of the residency program. We have a lot of things to work out. But first, we had faculty buy-in. And secondly, we had a strong, strong partnership where each of the partners felt perfectly comfortable in disagreeing or agreeing or adding to. And so I think this is critical if we're going to select a university to be a teacher prep program. I think those are things that you must consider.
Does anybody have any questions for the panel?
I think you can hear my voice. Can you hear me okay? I'm curious at the university level, is there, in the education system, are there integrated curriculums within the colleges to work between colleges to leverage what you're trying to accomplish, the skills you're trying to accomplish with the other colleges that the students are in as they go through the program?
We have not had that experience at this point, but of course we're we're just coming into the game, so possibly down the road that would be a possibility, certainly.
A little bit of that, and some of it's been brought about because of funding from the Board of Regents, such as the Court of College funding. It provided, some of the things that are occurring right now are providing leverage for change that we'd like to have. But some of that is, funding that's available. It provides us with that, and also initiatives such as Court of College. And we recently were privileged enough at Louisiana Tech to receive a grant from Howard Hughes and the National Math and Science Initiative to replicate UTeach. And the UTeach is a STEM to work with STEM teachers, and that provides in that we must integrate. It's a fully interdisciplinary process. It involves our College of Liberal Arts, Applied Natural Sciences, and the College of Engineering and Sciences. So the way that we'll be from now on educating and training our STEM secondary folks and in our middle school, and hopefully this eventually moves down to the elementary and early childhood, is a fully interdisciplinary approach with all these colleges. We hope that this is a lever of change for us that moves positively so we can train all of our teachers in that fashion, because we believe that it's going to provide us with richer content knowledge. Also, because of this, we provide field experiences beginning in the very first quarter of their freshman year in college, so they get to decide right away whether this experience in teaching is for them or not. It provides us an opportunity to support those folks from that process, even through internships and so forth. So we see a lot of the things that are going on in the state, Believe and Prepare, our U-Teach program, Core to College, some other Carnegie things that we're doing as being levers that all work in a parallel fashion for us to move our teacher preparation programs forward. And the things that we should do, richer content knowledge, a whole lot more cognitive theory involvement so they can synthesize these things. I agree with what was said earlier, and that the partnership with the schools is so crucial to this. And we've been very blessed to have partnerships with our surrounding school districts, but I think some of the levers that are occurring right now, like Believe and Prepare, just enhance that. And they make it a whole lot easier for us to deal with. And we're swapping a lot of information. We've become a community of learners from this, a networked community of learners, I think. And meeting with some of the superintendents has provided us, and talking about these sort of things, we're swapping information. And that's a really a great thing. And also what's occurring at our university is we're swapping knowledge among professors in the science disciplines and the English disciplines and so forth. And that's extremely exciting too. So that's an answer. But I think we're starting, and I can see within 4 or 5 years this being a growing process. So anyway, hope that helps answer your question.
Hi, my name is Hazel Parker. Hi, my name is Hazel Parker. I'm from New Orleans. I'm a new school leader, but I come from a University of New Orleans. And so my comment is about, similar to Brooks, is about resources at the university level. And for the colleges of education as preparation providers, they'll need additional resources because when you think about scheduling and you think about sending student teachers out for additional field experiences and those clinical practices and extending it to a full year, it's really difficult when you think about scheduling students and including the travel from the university to the school sites and all the other different things that you need to supervise student teachers and their experiences, and making sure that their quality experiences. More resources are needed at the university level.
Jean Burns with the Board of Regents, and we're supportive of the idea of intensive clinical experiences as long as it's not just one model, that there's flexibility for districts and providers to work together. But I actually have a question for you, because anytime you move towards a residency or a full year experience, it's absolutely critical that whoever the candidates are going to be placed with are effective teachers, because if not, they're going to have a year of experiences that may not really prepare them for the next year. And so I'd like to just get, and anyone who would like to respond, how do you help, because I think part of this qualifying for a preparation program to train teachers isn't just the university or the private providers. If we're going to move toward a more intensive clinical experience, it is a partnership with the school district who is going to help to ensure that high quality teachers, and I look at high quality as, we're hearing about dispositions, where someone who's caring, understanding, but students are also learning within that particular classroom environment. So first question is, how do we help to ensure that we have those quality mentors that are working with the candidates for this intensive experience? And then when we have small programs, it's easier to find placements, but we have programs with 200 to 300 candidates per year who are going to have to be placed within school districts. And so any kind of advice on how you help to ensure you have quality mentors who are with these candidates year-round, especially with the really large programs?
Jean, I will start, and we do not have a tremendously large program, but I think the concept is similar. First of all, we will not make the decision alone. As I said, we have a wonderful working relationship with the superintendents in the area. I have a little bit of advantage in that I hired some of the principals that we will be working with, and that doesn't mean that makes them wonderful. But I do have the advantage of knowing them maybe better than you would in a larger area. We will select very carefully, and when I say we, it will be the school system and the university, the mentor teachers that we are using. But there is another component that I think that's equally as important, and that is that they are placed in schools with effective principals. If we don't have effective leadership within that school, I don't care how good the teacher is, they are limited as to what they can accomplish. So we're not only looking for positive mentor teachers, we're looking for successful principals based on everything from working relationship with their faculty, satisfaction of parents in the area, and, of course, test scores. And we take that on down the road to where we get to the end of this year of residency. We're going to determine whether or not this young person gets a license to teach. We want both we want the mentor teacher, we want the university staff, and we want that principal all to be involved in making that decision as to whether that young person has successfully completed the program. Now, if we had 500 residencies, I'm sure it would be quite different, and I'll bow to some of my colleagues that have higher numbers.
I just wanted to respond to that. I completely agree. The mentor teacher clearly needs to meet a high standard of excellence in terms of their own impact on student achievement and any other factors that we deem, the makings of a quality classroom. And I don't think that's that hard to do. It's a matter of holding ourselves accountable to making those decisions prudently. But I also feel like some of this conversation is kind of trying to emphasize, well, it's really the teacher, or it's really the principal, it's really this or that. I would argue it's equally important that the professor of a teacher preparation program be effective, just as important as that mentor teacher. And quite honestly, I'm not sure in every university classroom in the state that professors who are not particularly effective in developing teachers are actually being held accountable. And ultimately, it's about the entire progression. Everybody involved in the teacher's preparation experience has to be effective. And we have to take action when they're not and remove those teachers from experiences where they're not learning or not being given the proper guidance. And so I think it's about accountability along the whole chain.
If I could just add on to that. Coming from a district that truly supports its schools, I think the trust that our school district has with the University of Southeastern Louisiana University, that trust is there that they're going to choose the appropriate principal and teacher, effective teacher. I know as a principal who's very data-driven in what we do, as many of us are in our schools, we know who our most effective teachers are. We know who has the greatest impact on student achievement. So that trust, you have to have the trust between between the school and the overseeing university. It's got to be a unique relationship between the three, and I think if you have that, then it makes it much more viable as a principal. Because let me tell you, and somebody mentioned it earlier, when I first became principal 5 years ago, the number of applicants coming to me on a regular basis for teaching jobs was much larger than what it is now. To maintain and to hold on to good teachers is my number one priority, because obviously if you have effective teachers, you have effective instruction, and you're positively impacting students and student achievement, which we're all being held accountable for. So why wouldn't it be in the principal's best interest to hold on to the teachers and train them the way that you want to be, the way you want your teachers to be trained, to hold them to that level of accountability. So it's in the principal's best interest to make sure that they're assigned to a very effective teacher that going to have a positive impact.
I think also to speak to the residency component, as I said at the top, we, Relay Graduate School of Education, we're launching a year-long residency, and many of our CMO partners have actually applied for the Cohort 2 Believe and Prepare grant to use some of that funding for that program. But I just want to take a moment to talk about that program because I actually think it gets at very much the question that you asked. So our residency is actually a response to a gap in the talent pipeline in New Orleans. So when I think about principals in New Orleans that are constantly trying to hire teachers and are fishing from the same shallow pond, if you will, like there is a teacher shortage that is extremely apparent in the city of New Orleans. And I think we continue to pull from the same pipelines, and those same pipelines continue not to reflect the demographics of the communities in which we serve. So if we're thinking about how do we bring more teachers into the city, if we're thinking about how do we bring more teachers into the city that actually reflect the communities in which we serve, we need a variety of pipelines that are actually going to do it. So the Relay Graduate School of Education teacher residency actually is a direct response to that need. It is a one-year program. It is ideal for teachers that are, or folks that are interested in teaching, but are not quite sure if they're ready to teach. And we put all of the responsibility in the hands of CMOs to hire folks that are good fits for their schools. So the first hire comes from the actual charter school. They make the decision, this person is a good fit for my school, I'm going to hire them. Their promise to us is that they will partner with us to actually hire a resident advisor, so someone in their school that has demonstrated that they are an effective teacher, and not just your gut or maybe a 5 or 10 minute observation, but actually their evaluations, their demonstration of student growth. These things actually reveal that they are effective teachers. They will pair that resident with that resident advisor, and that will be the person that is their kind of gatekeeper, if you will, as they navigate through the program. The relay end is that we will teach them, and we won't just teach them the practice-based instruction, but a huge component of our program as well is the theory, is the content, because you can have all the techniques in the world, but if you don't actually have the content knowledge, it's all for naught. And so as we think about programs that actually prepare teachers to teach and make them feel confident, we do need to think about how long the runway is. We do need to think about what our programs are actually preparing teachers to do with students on day one, and do our best to categorize those skills so that all preparation programs can feel that when they're releasing teachers or when they're signing off on teachers, they're actually going to have the impact that we've promised to students and families throughout the state.
I'm from Ouachita Parish, Linda Trimble, and we are delighted to try to partner with Louisiana Tech, and we have been in the past with other programs, and I'm just piggybacking on what Jennifer and Patsy just said about how we almost, what I'm hearing is creating a culture in the system for our teachers. And I just think about industry. I'm a business major as well. And I think about how industry does it. They have internships with their prospective employees, and sometimes it's every summer for a number of years before they release them in their program and before they are qualified to actually meet the demands that's placed upon them. Well, I feel like that's what we're doing here. I think this is a very good forum to develop that culture. But I guess my question and comment is, in our universities, are we specializing like that to have not just teacher preparation programs, but teacher preparation colleges, universities that are so specific that we invest in those teachers, like I'm hearing some of them are saying about the expense. And of course we know when industry send theirs into the work world for their internship, there's large salaries already for those interns, and we're behind in that area, and we know that. Although I started over 30 years ago in education, and the money was not my intrinsic motivation. It was because I was planning to go into business, but the first year I followed my coaching husband, they gave me a job teaching, and I loved it and never looked back. So I know we do have to cultivate that knack for it, but I think even in industry, it's cultivated in some way because they specialize in technology, they specialize in chemistry, and when we are cultivating this culture that we're doing right now, I feel like it's going to take the whole village. It's going to take the entire community to do what we're doing, and my question is, I'm just not sure we're ready for all of that accountability to be placed back in our school systems. Even as we partner together, I think this is a grand thing to partner together. And I knew when I started teaching, I needed the village, the community, the next door neighbors, the ones down the street that I didn't know. They all helped me to become who I am today. And I feel like we're missing sometime in education that link that we need to create that culture. Just like in industry, they have multiple businesses that come in together to train those interns and those year-long, summer-long internships to produce the top quality that they want. And I'm just wondering, how are we doing that even in our universities? And I hear teacher preparation programs, but I'm just so beyond the program. I just believe it should be beyond the program.
May I address that? I totally agree with what you're saying here. And I'd like to in addressing this, maybe address 3 or 4 of the comments that were made recently. We've been through this pilot program now. When we've met together as a faculty and as a unit about doing the Believe and Prepare and piloting it, we've had been thinking about a longer clinical residency process for a long time and the barriers that were there for doing it. Most of the white papers that you read about clinical residencies are in urban areas. They work on a hospital model. So they have a training center, and sitting right beside there is a hospital, and all their doctors go over there. Well, in this case, all their teachers go over right next door in this large high school, a large elementary school. Well, we have a rural environment. So it's not that simple, just go right next door. So you have all this travel costs and so forth involved. Plus, the further away that your schools are, the more disconnect there is, rather. So you feel like maybe you're not getting an opportunity to visit your teachers and your clinical instructors and so forth as much as you should. The cost, while the pilot provides funding, it doesn't provide funding for sustainability. So, and then also, can we do what we're going to need to do? Because in order to do this sort of thing, we have to totally revamp how we work as a teacher preparation program, which means blocking schedules, redoing our courses, and so forth. So it's not just this, oh, gee, we're going to get this money and we're going to put some kids in a school and so forth for a long time. It's a long-term commitment, and it's going to take a cultural change to do so. So we met with faculty for a couple of years before that through a professional learning initiative and spoke about how we're going to accomplish these tasks and whether we had the commitment and buy-in to do so. And also started talking to some of the school district leaders about this sort of culture that you're talking about. One of the things that ties into this strongly is I talked about the UTeach program, which we received $1.5 million from Howard Hughes. It's actually going to cost us $3 to $5 million. We have to have a commitment from our business partners, from our university, and so forth to do something like that. It's a transformative initiative that people in the community, the university, and so forth all have to get behind to say it's really important enough for us to train teachers that are going to come back into our universities highly skilled, with training highly skilled students and so forth. So we're looking at this as a 5, 10, 15, 20-year commitment. But we had to have some really long talks because, it's like, well, there's $100,000. Isn't that wonderful? This is going to cost way more than that. And it's going to have us have a long-term commitment to changing what we do. We have students that are, like you said, non-traditional students, that it's tough on them to do this residency. So we have to figure out methods of doing that. Also, it costs us a whole lot more money to track these folks for a long term like that. And if you want to be more content specific, it's hard to find a whole lot of folks to go out into the field that are content experts in all these different areas. So you may have to narrow your program focus in order to do this. That means not being able to supply art teachers or not being able to supply music teachers because you have to narrow your focus. So there's a lot of decisions to be made before you commit to something like this. But having a culture within the school partnerships is extremely important. Also, it ties into the very last component of this, I think, this presentation, prestige. because in order to have mentor teachers that are committed to this, it's not just about dollars and so forth, it's about prestige. So we have to make sure that those mentor teachers are treated special, that they know it is a special position, not just because they receive stipends or whatever, but there is training, there's certification, that they're highly qualified, and they receive prestige for doing this, because it's extremely important that they do so. We all have to work together to get that done, though. Everybody in this room has to work together to get that done. Parents, businesses, everybody, or it's not going to happen. So we got to get out there and market the thing and do some public relations work and so forth. And we need everybody in this room to get behind it, or it's going to fall flat. So that's the answer. But we're committed to doing so. But we'll see what happens.
I would like to add one thing, if I may. We all know about funding with education. Without the support of the community and especially the business community, folks, we're dead in the water. So one of the first things I did when we had our proposed outline for moving into the project of changing teacher prep, I have met with the Chamber, I have met with Rotary, I have spoken to these groups, I have gone one-on-one with key businesses in our community explaining exactly what we're trying to do, but I think more importantly, asking for their input on how they perceive the educational system in our area and what they think might make a difference. Just because they don't have a degree in education hung behind their name doesn't mean that they don't know something about what they need, especially when we get into the area of workforce development and supplying students that are going to walk out of our schools work ready in many cases. Yes, some of our students are going to go on to a four-year program. Some are going to a tech program, but many of them are going straight to the workforce. And so as we change the way we prepare our students to go out and teach, we also need to talk to the community about what they see as our needs and some things that we could well use to incorporate in what we're doing. And some of their suggestions we have found very useful in that incorporation. And of course, we know that a lot of our tax money comes from the business community. So unless we involve them in what we're trying to do by way of change, they're not going to understand how can they support what they don't understand. So I think it's critical that we go to the community and let them know what we're doing up front. And then we can expect, I think, a more positive reaction from them.
We're going to take 2 more comments on this. I want to be sure we get through all 4 factors. We've touched on a lot of them, so I don't want to cut anybody off, but 2 more comments and then we'll move.
Quick. Keith Leger, I'm with Stand for Children. I have a question about, do we have these processes in place where, and I heard you mention tracking, process in place where we can survey teachers after their first year and their respective principals to glean information from those 2 different people about the areas of strength in their teacher prep programs, as well as maybe what could be strengthened. And then, do you have those processes in place? And if you do, would you share maybe some of the feedback that you've been getting? And then if you don't have those processes in place, what are some of the challenges if, in fact, you think that that's a valuable asset?
If it's okay, that question sort of sets us up for some discussion a little bit later in a few of the other factors. So if we can address Keith's question as a part of a way to respond to the other factors, I think we can wrap that in.
It's an extremely important process for us, and it's one that's really challenging to do, because teachers travel in different areas. It's hard for us to keep track of them. And also it's really hard for us to keep track of them if they go to teach in Texas or some other place, some other location other than the state. Thanks to some work being done in the Board of Regents, directed by Gene Burns, we're now initiating a process. A pilot survey went out recently, and then we're getting some feedback on it. Maybe Gene can speak more to exactly how that's working. But we're extremely delighted with that, because it's a costly process for us as a teacher preparation program. It's very hard to do, so receiving assistance from the state in that is extremely important to us. Some of our accrediting agencies are demanding more and more of that sort of information, and we need that kind of information to track our students, to find out how we can support them in an induction process, and also to find out where there are challenges and where they're having successes, so we know how to make interventions in our program.
I'm going to be very brief, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to seek your help. We have developed a survey. It's based upon, it's working with the deans. It's based upon the national INTAS standards for the Council for Chief State School Officers. It's aligned with Compass. And we tested it during December, and we're getting ready to pilot it during spring of this year, where we will be asking for feedback from all of the completers, from all of the individuals who have been supervising the completers. But we're also going to be taking a step further, and we're going to be attempting to work with the superintendents in the school districts to help to identify, we'll tell them who we'll attempt to identify which school districts the new teachers are in, first and second year teachers, and then we're going to be working with the superintendents to identify the email addresses of the new teachers and their principals, and then asking them to complete the survey as well. And it's an online survey. We will be sending emails to everyone requesting that they provide feedback. We're going to be putting it, we'll be piloting the process this spring with implementation next year. And then we have a data dashboard, a teacher preparation data dashboard already that's available to the public with a lot of data about our teacher preparation programs, and we will be adding this information to the data dashboard. So we're moving on that, and we anticipate that next year. But this is, again, we keep going back. This is not going to work unless the school districts are willing to work with us to help us identify where those teachers are, what their email addresses are, and their principals, so that we can actually get the feedback. So we're going to be seeking your help.
We're very excited about this because so many different entities want to see our data. We report to so many different folks, and it costs us in excess of $100,000 to maybe $150,000 a year into all these reporting mechanisms that we have to do. And we can't train teachers while we're reporting data to all these different entities. So having a data dashboard where all these different organizations can come and just pick up the data would be extremely helpful for us, and it would help us in our analytics process. So we're grateful for that.
Thank you. I'll be really brief. I'm Selena from TNTP. We have a partnership with Collegiate Academies this year as part of Pilot 1. And I wanted to share a piece of the structure of our pilot that I think addresses some of the challenges around sustainability that have been mentioned in this conversation. The way we approached our pilot with Collegiate was very much from the standpoint of how can we as an organization work in alignment with the school partner to build their capacity to actually be the folks who are responsible for the development and ultimate success of the first year teachers on their campuses. And so we are not sending our coaches into collegiate schools in the same way we would other first-year teachers in our program. Instead, we have a full-time staff member who spends a significant amount of her time on collegiate's campus throughout the school year, working alongside the two coaches that are already working at collegiate to help them think about the best way to support and develop the first-year teachers at the school. I think that what's been really successful about this model this year is that we went in with a plan for what it would look like working within the structure of the teacher development model that Collegiate already had in place. But as partners, we've both been really flexible in our approach to the work. And so as we saw through the data, the different things that our teachers were having success with or struggling with, we were very nimble and could change the way we were approaching the work. And so as we sort of addressed working with this additional set of teachers in this additional partnership, it didn't actually take a lot of additional capacity from our staff, because what we're doing is we're taking our knowledge as an organization and we're helping to build that within the structure that already exists in the school. What we're thinking about for year 2 now is that we can pull away from some of the things that we've helped to put in place in year one and focus on what is like the next challenge within this work that would be really the biggest value add for TNTP to help advise and support collegiate around in the work. And as we approach new partnerships for the possible second year, we've been thinking about the same thing. Like what's going on in this school? What structures do they already have in place that we can help them build on that really can support first year teachers to be successful?
So I think, and I'm sure that there is a lot more that we will need to talk about with program experience, with what needs to be required, with how we develop the essential knowledge, skills, and dispositions, how school system partners should be involved and why they should be involved and to what extent they should be involved, and how those services can be shared so that it reduces the burden on both sides and it truly is a collaboration that helps both sides. We've talked a lot about teacher readiness, and I think we've touched on this next idea, but I think it's worth treating by itself, which is how preparation programs meet schools' staffing needs. Several people in the room have mentioned, most notably school systems, that the supply of teachers does not always meet school needs. And statewide, there are shortages. Sometimes those shortages, as I said before, are in all certification areas because of the location of the school system. It's far away in rural Louisiana, or it's down at the end, and as Bev Larson says, nobody drives through St. Bernard to get anywhere. So, there are challenges based on your geography. So a question for the panel, and specifically Morgan, to build on the contribution that Selena just gave us, how could the supply of teachers, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. I'm not going to read that question on the slide. How does this partnership help you meet the staffing needs that you have in collegiate schools?
Thank you. So I think, so bad with the microphone, sorry. A couple of things. I mean, first, something that's not surprising, right, is the huge gap in content area knowledge. So not just like overall teacher shortage, but teacher shortage, specifically math, science, special education. Y'all are looking at 3 administrators also who operate high schools. So I can't state enough how important really deep content knowledge is in those areas, not just like, hey, I took some math in college, but I majored in calculus in college, is the level of content knowledge that we need. And being able to participate, or to collaborate with a provider that does alternative certification, you're able to find together, I think, identify more folks who have those deep knowledge backgrounds in college. They spent more time in college developing themselves in their content area. And then while they're spending their first year teaching, they're getting the first year teacher support. And I think just to go into that a little bit more too, we can have a school leader who's an expert in planning, and she can coach every single teacher in her building on planning and how to plan effectively. We can have a school leader who is an expert in classroom management skills. She can coach every single teacher in her building in classroom management. If we have a school leader who's also an expert in U.S. history, her sitting down with the calculus teacher to talk about increasing rigor in her classroom and increasing the content in her classroom is something that really is a stumbling block. And I think that actually building expertise while people are being prepared for college, building content expertise also does speak to the prestige component of this. So folks coming into the teaching profession as experts in certain areas already, and then building their capacity as teachers as they grow in the building, is something that I think helps elevate the profession overall. Also, I don't feel the need to elaborate on it too much, but Ben brought it up first, and then Selena really well. I think having this alignment, this provider-school alignment component, is absolutely necessary. And I think last time I was here, I talked about it in terms of collaboration, and I like the word alignment a lot better. But just us being able to work together to improve what the teachers are getting in that year of residency, in that year of training, however your program looks at it, really making sure that the provider in the school are not just the providers, not just sending a teacher into a school to be supported by a mentor teacher, but that that provider and that school are working together with the mentor teacher or the coach or whomever it is that's supporting the teacher to build those skills that that specific teacher needs, and then bring it back to the program too to assess what changes do we need to do program-wide to support teachers across our program.
So in terms of the staffing question, we have some school systems, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I know that we have some school systems present who specifically targeted this in your Believe and Prepare application. And I'm curious if you have anything to contribute to this conversation about how these partnerships can be strengthened in order to better align the supply of teachers that you are getting from your partner university or preparation program with your workforce needs. Did anybody?
I'm Diana Dyer from Orleans Parish Public Schools, and we've spoken about regular education, advanced placement, college education. We've spoken about special education, but what I don't hear anyone talking about is career and technical education, which is an integral part of our new diploma system. And what we do in Orleans Parish, because we do have a shortage of teachers in specific areas, is that we recruit from industry. And those people who come from industry also bring the resources from industry. So they can still influence how that industry supports what we are trying to do in the schools to meet the diploma requirements from the state of Louisiana. We have many students in TOPS Core 4 University, and we have many students in our new Jumpstart pathways leading to another diploma, the TOPS Tech diploma. These diplomas are equal to but different than each other. And I think it's taken a while for our universities to understand that there are ways of teaching students who are in these TOPS Tech pathways that need specific skills, and there are 9 electives. And I think that when we all start understanding that there are diplomas that are different than but equal to, then we'll be able to prepare the teachers to come back into our schools with the credentials they need. Our teachers need credentials. We select those from industry who have not only a degree, but they have the credentials that we need, whether it's in NCCER electrical, whether it's in welding. And we have these teachers that we take through a training program, and funding is very limited. But the accountability here is these teachers are credentialed, and they credential the students. So the students leave with a credential. Many of them leave with a Core 4 and a credential. But I think that I haven't even heard CTE mentioned today, career and technical education. And it's integral for the healthcare program in Orleans Parish, where we have a ginormous footprint of hospitals coming in, for the new technology centers that we have there, and for the construction that we have there. So I think that our focus should be more open. It should be a focus on how we can supply industry with the employees they need. And that's the buy-in industry has. They know that we are training, we are credentialing students to go into those industries to supply that workforce. So while the workforce needs college-prepared students, that could be the 2-year college. Or it could be a 4-year college with a credential. But to blanketly send people to college with no credentials that you have at the end is just not as rewarding as it could be for those students.
Speaking to the workforce needs, I'm Jim Carroll, principal of West Feliciana High School. We partnered with the Kane Center for our Believe and Prepare grant proposal, and we're very successful. I think that the whole question of meeting workforce needs is something that is much more complicated than we're talking about. A teacher is not a widget. We can't just stamp them out. You can't just go and say someone is qualified to teach welding or because they were a great welder. Those dispositional aspects are what get in the way all the time. So this close relationship between the provider and the district and school is what makes this work. That close relationship allows you to pick, to find, to get the specific thing that you need at your school. And I think that is crucial as we go forward from here, is that relationship is what we must foster.
So I think a second question of this, it's part of the program approval question is, should supplying teachers of certain subject areas be incented and or rewarded for a preparation program? And I'm actually going to just ask the general room that question instead of starting with a panel member. What's the value of taking this approach to help preparation programs be incented to try to meet these supply challenges?
Hi, it's Brooke Montine again. Excuse me. I think we have to go back from this point to recruitment at the college level and also other providers level. I've been able to in the past work at both Teach NOLA and also at 2 universities in the New Orleans area, so I have both perspectives. And it's comparing apples to oranges and what we're able to recruit. What I mean by that is when I worked with Teach NOLA, we had a field of 40 teacher candidates out of 1,400 applicants. But we also paid them a stipend to be in the program. In the college level, it's a different thing. If we could find more science, majors and history majors and ELA majors who wanted to come to us, we would be so thrilled to train them. But it's much more challenging to recruit with the aspect of them having to pay college tuition. So that's what the field is, but it's not a level playing field.
Does anybody want to add to that or have questions?
I'd like to also comment about the current technical pieces that you've kind of mentioned, because I am principal of a very large high school, and I have true concerns as far as the Jumpstart pathways are concerned, and certifying and training certified teachers to be able to credential our students. Not to mention find the business partners. We have a very close business partnership relationship with our business and industry in St. Charles Parish. However, that's a limited opportunities for our students. We're not near a technical college per se to bus students to and from. The cost of that is pretty enormous. So my challenge and my question, like I'm sure some of you other principals and other educators here, is what are we doing to address those needs and providing those qualified teachers and candidates to provide those opportunities for our students as it is aligned to a diploma pathway. I agree wholeheartedly, and I'm sorry we didn't mention it earlier, but I don't think the question would necessarily focus on that, but I think it's a very important point to note. I would say approximately 30 to 40% of our students at Humble High School would probably meet that pathway and be along in that pathway, and I'm very concerned with the limited opportunities that those students may possess due to the lack of, we're just talking about, you're right, certified teacher, we're talking about math, science, social studies. Those are easy for our colleges probably to get a hold of, but how hard is it to train a welding teacher? I have one that I've stuck on to for 15 years, phenomenal. But let me tell you, to go out and try to find a welding teacher, it would be very hard to do. So I do think, and I challenge our BESI members and our representatives to ensure that we have alignment and that we truly have support in place on the initiatives moving forward, because we're going to leave some students out without certification, without an avenue of support, regardless of what we do. I do think it's needed because that is where a lot of our workforce needs are. But to find certified teachers, more or less certified teachers in career and technical is extremely difficult, extremely.
I came here to listen, not to speak, so I'm trying to be reluctant about speaking. But I think we have a challenge for this particular one that we need to be thinking about, and it's a challenge that many of you may not be aware of. Within many of our universities now, because of all the budget cuts and everything, we now have more of our secondary teachers now getting a degree in the content area, history, math, English, biology, and a minor in secondary education. We do not, most of our programs now do not have their secondary programs in colleges of ed, their degrees in arts and sciences. So we could easily say we're going to have all of these different students, we could project that we're going to have these candidates graduate with degrees in math and minors in education, but they're going to have other opportunities in addition to teaching. And that's a real challenge now. So we could meet projections, but that may not address the workforce need. So we keep talking about having to work together. This is another area where we really do need to work together, because those individuals need to maybe be aware from the very first day they enter a program that their school district is going to offer them a job as a teacher in mathematics once they complete the program. So again, I think we need to, a lot of people think of how things were 20, 30 years ago, but times have changed now. And what's happening for teacher preparation looks very different from one teacher preparation to a program to another, especially for secondary education majors. They're all addressing the same standards. They're meeting state certification requirements, but our secondary graduates now have far more opportunities for getting higher paying jobs than what they have for education. So I just think we have to be very sensitive to that here, because it's not just providing incentives to universities to produce more, but it needs to be at the other end as well, where there are jobs that people know that they're going to have, so they'll go into teaching.
Would anybody like to add anything or questions? I'm trying to be sensitive to time. I don't want to cap things before people are ready, but we do have two other factors to consider and to talk through. The last two are growth in student learning and prestige of the profession. The growth in student learning piece is interesting because of the work of Dr. James Burns and the universities over the last decade in partnership with Bessie, the Board of Regents and Bessie currently report annually on preparation programs' impact on student learning through value-added results. But these results only include a portion of the preparation program's graduates and really are just one measure of the impact of those teachers on student learning. And so a question that I have for Ken is to say, how should graduate success with students be determined? How would you like for that to be considered?
Sure. And I can't speak on behalf of universities, but as far as a principal in the classroom, I think you have to look at it much as though that teacher was a part of your faculty and staff. You have to be, in everything that we do now, teacher accountability is of the utmost importance. As a principal, as a school leader, you have to ensure that our teachers are meeting those standards. So, through the use of common formative assessments and measuring student growth. You mentioned VAM scores at a high school that doesn't necessarily apply at certain stages, but aligned to our SLTs, Compass, obviously through walk-around observations. We use a digital tool where we formatively assess teachers within a 2-week period. And we gather that data. It's aligned to the Compass rubric. So we're measuring teacher growth on the professional means as well as the practical means with student achievement.
So Jennifer and Morgan, to speak to this, I know that your programs take a look at this and consider other things aside from BAM when you look at your those teachers' impact on student learning. So I'm wondering if you have anything to add to this.
So yeah, I would say in addition to what Ken's already said, what we're looking at is daily student data, quarterly student data, annual student data, and same for teachers, about biweekly coaching data that we're getting, quarterly teacher evals, and then annual summative evals. So what we really look for, particularly when we're looking at first-year teachers or teachers that are in training, is their capacity to grow as professionals and their capacity to grow student achievement. So not so much looking at the end of year point of where everybody is, but did they grow as a professional and did they help grow student data? And we use the new teacher projects assessments to help us do that. We also have some internally created rubrics that we use as well. So just lots of data to inform our decision making.
I would echo almost all of that. I think the additional piece for Relay is that part of our program, we actually evaluate teachers on professionalism. And so that professionalism includes engagement, preparation, follow through, the things that we would consider highly effective professionals to actually do, because our impact is not just with students, but we want to know what that impact looks like with faculty, with parents, with the community. That's just as important to us as well.
Julie, if I may, I would like to add just one thought to that, and certainly my purpose is not to diminish the importance of content. We want people that know what they're trying to teach. That's a given. But we've all seen students who were not successful, let's say in a math class, and the next year take another math class with a different teacher, and they are extremely successful. And somewhere in all of our hard, cold facts and numbers, I think that we have to consider working with our young teachers from the human element. We have children now, as never before, that go home to no home. They go home to no parent there at all. And maybe no parent, period. They're living with a relative or whomever. I mean, those are things that affect greatly the learning or lack thereof with our students. And I think when teachers become so totally oriented to cramming the content in, we lose sight of the fact that we're working with human beings. I can manufacture a car, and if I make a mistake with that car, I can trash it and come out with a new model. If I have a child in my classroom and I make a mistake with that child as far as an emotional need, a social need, as well as the educational need, I can't throw him away and bring in a new model. And I think that's the difference in education and business. I am all about knowledge. I am all about teachers that know what they're teaching, but let's not forget that those teachers have to have a compassion for students, or they're not going to be successful.
Reactions to the panel? Questions?
Hi, I'm Carol Whalen, and I'm the department head at Tulane University for teacher certification. We have an alternate certification program, and I appreciate all of your comments. We are applicants for the Believe and Prepare, and we do believe that a residency program will greatly enhance our students' experiences as well as the districts and the school that we'd be working with. I also just wanted to mention in response to your comment, I was thrilled with it because I've been looking at schools around the country that are really focusing on social and emotional learning, and they're finding that it's not only enhancing their test scores, but it's creating an environment within the school that makes a great difference. You walk into these schools and kids are happy, they're smiling, and they are learning. So I really just wanted to say thank you for those comments, and I think we should all be thinking about social and emotional learning component of our new programs as well as our old programs. Thank you.
I'm Brian McCoy from Tech, and I just a couple observations. One is that I believe, and there's a lot of data to support the idea, that teachers' ability to create teacher-made assessments and to do accurate, valid, and reliable assessment of student growth on a continuing basis is a huge problem. We don't teach teachers how to do that well. And added to that is that the standardized assessment measures that we have also don't do that well. And it's the nature of the standardization. When we give a student a fourth grade benchmark, it doesn't well measure the growth that they may have made from a second grade benchmark to a third grade benchmark, and likewise, it doesn't well measure any growth that they've made beyond that fourth benchmark. So, I mean, assessment and being able to measure those student outcomes is a huge issue that I believe we've truly barely begun to scratch the surface of knowing how to do that. Or we know how to do it, but we don't do it well, I think, is what the problem is.
I would just say quickly, I think there's an opportunity to get better at that, and as much controversy as is currently surrounding the PARCC exam, the ability for the first time for the state to have nationally normed data will allow us to we'll have vertical integration, so we can see growth grade to grade, as opposed to just snapshots of how kids did on that grade levels criteria. We'll be able to compare students to a national norm and see how much progress they're making compared to the rest of the country at a very high level. We'll be able to compare preparation programs, as I said earlier, based on the average percentile of the students and how they're performing with the teachers in those programs. So I do think there's a real opportunity, to your point, to get a lot better at that for the first time, and we just haven't had that kind of strength of data in the past.
Judy Moranti, professor at Xavier University and a Bessie board member. I'm thrilled with this conversation because at the very beginning, when we started looking at teacher accountability and we were looking at preparation programs, we were very, very concerned about how our students would have an impact on student achievement when they were in the schools, and also measuring how long they were going to be able to stay in the school, 5 years plus, whatever. And I think this whole conversation about creating that culture is just so important. And I have to say thank you, Dr. Jenkins, because I do believe that as we factor in all those components for success, we really do need to see where we are sending our student teachers. We also have to know where our first-year teachers are going and how much support they're getting from that system, so that when they are teaching high-risk students, when they are teaching in areas where there's a lot of mobility, we have student teachers that will come back and our school counselors that will come back saying, oh, we have seen so much success with this student, but the mother has just broken up with the boyfriend and now she's going to move out of the system. And they were having so much success academically with this student, and now the student is going to leave. So I think this whole conversation about how to hold people accountable is also the partnerships that we're forming so that we can build that culture where our beginning teachers are really supported, and that we understand that if the students are not achieving at great levels, that what is the population that they're serving and what are they doing to create that culture where these children are feeling safe and secure and really supported. So thank you for this conversation. Seeing it from all ends of it.
Could I add just one thing, a component that we have in our program that may be just a tad different? And the reason it's there is that we believe so much in what I just said about supporting these young teachers. I guess you could say we send our graduates out with a one-year guarantee. I spoke to the principals in Rapides a month ago Tuesday and discussed this with them from this standpoint. If you hire one of our graduates, we will guarantee you that for 1 year, 1 school year after you hire them, if there is a problem, whether it is an academic problem, a classroom management problem, whatever, they may call us, they may email us, or if the problem warrants, we, the faculty, or I, will go to that classroom and work with that young teacher until it's resolved. Now, I was careful to explain to principals, we're not saying to you, we don't think you know how to solve this problem. But if you'll think for a moment, I was a first-year teacher once, as many of you were. That principal is my evaluator. Do you think that I'm going to walk up and say, gee, Dr. Burns, I don't have a clue what to do with this problem? And the evaluator is making notes. But with us, they have graduated. We don't grade them anymore, we don't evaluate them, and they do know us because we've worked with them. And so they're more comfortable to come and be honest and say, I'm having a problem with classroom management, or I'm having a problem with content issues. It's really been received well by the principals. They seem to appreciate that. In fact, they want to know if we'll take on some others that graduated somewhere else. No. But anyway, I do think that if we can offer that level of support, we can keep some of our young teachers that teach for a few months and say, this is not for me, I'm out of here. So retention is also a part of this whole picture.
So, in the interest of time, because I think there's another meeting after this one, I'm not sure. I'm just kidding. So, in the interest of time, I think if it's okay, I'd like to sum up what we have heard today and make sure that I'm getting it right, because this is all going to inform our next steps as a department. And I think all of these points can be summed up around this last factor, actually, which is the impact of preparation programs on the prestige of the profession. There are a couple of things that I think are important. One, it's important that school systems and preparation programs agree on what teachers should know and be able to do, and the dispositions that they should have in order to be effective in the classroom. It has to be agreed upon. And so whatever is captured has to be mutually developed. The second thing I would say is both school systems and preparation programs agree practice is crucial. You don't develop skills by reading about them. You don't develop skills by going in and trying it by yourself and failing over and over. You have to have quality mentoring. That can only come through deep partnerships with school systems where very intentional decisions are made by both parties about who should serve as mentors, about where those candidates should be placed, about the kind of support that they should get as they develop the skills, as they assess their progress towards developing those skills, and as we measure the impact that they're having on student learning, whether that occurs in a traditional program or an alternative program. A key critical thing around all of this, though, is that all three of these things, if done well, all three of these things in order to be done well, have to be done in partnership. School systems and preparation programs have to come together in order to accomplish this, because both sides have equal importance in developing the next generation of teachers. And so when we talk about the impact on the prestige of the profession, and when we talk about retention, I think what strikes me is the way that Louisiana can raise the prestige of the teaching profession is by being very clear on what teachers need to learn, by being very clear on how they learn it, and by creating partnerships with school systems and preparation programs that accomplish that and measure it in a way that really tells preparation programs, school systems, and the candidates themselves that they are having a powerful impact on student learning. And so that keeps people in a profession, because they realize, I'm going to be equipped to do it. I'm going to be supported as I learn it. I'm going to know if I am successful, and I'm going to be supported if I'm not. So in becoming a teacher, I kind of fell into it, but in becoming a teacher, I know that I want to stay in it because I know that I'm being invested in. By being invested in, I am so much more likely to invest in those I work with.
Yes, ma'am. I would like to, my name is Renee from University, and just very briefly, I would just like to offer in this talk another kind of partnership that we have not explored yet, and that is the partnership between universities and private providers. And we have to stop looking at each other as competitors, but instead look at each other as choices that people have in order to be prepared to become a teacher. So they have a choice for Relay, they have a choice for Xavier, they have a choice for a university, and that a charter school or versus a public school preparation should not be just limited to those who are preparing their own, but that the people in those schools have choices, and that a university is a choice as well as a private provider. So I think since we're in New Orleans, we have all these different private providers in universities. We would like to offer at Xavier the first meeting of private providers in universities to come together to talk about what we offer, and that we are choices for people who want to become prepared as teachers.
I will be there. Tell me when it is. I am happy to be there, and this is a conversation that I'm actually having with many colleges and universities in New Orleans, so I am happy to come to Xavier. I think in particular, as I hear your closing remarks, Julie, I think, yes, there's partnership, but I also think specifically for New Orleans Parish, like I would like to charge us with thinking about the way in which we think about prestige. If prestige is, more Ivy League folks and high test scores and some other pieces that we think about, I think that is right and that's good and that's fair. But when I think about the statistics for New Orleans Parish in particular, the fact that only 5% of students born into low-income homes will actually graduate from a four-year college, that actually means that the percentage of people from those homes that are able to teach is drastically low. And so if I come from a low-income home, I am less inclined to become a teacher and make $35,000 a year. So as we think about pipelines, as we think about people going into classrooms, we actually need to think outside of our traditional means. We actually need to think outside of what we imagine teachers to be, because there are a plethora of people that are in our communities, that are in our states, that don't look anything like the children that we serve, that we're not really thinking about. And so that will be my push to all of us. I am absolutely committed to doing that work, not only as a Relay, but as a citizen of the state of New Orleans, state of Louisiana, and the city of New Orleans. I used to teach history, so that's actually pretty embarrassing. But it is something that's really important to me, and I am happy to talk to anyone about that.
Before I talk to you about the next steps, I just want to be sure that none of the panel members have any closing remarks about the conversation today. So as a result of this conversation, we have learned a lot about what needs to be taken into consideration as we think about program design, as we think about what should be required for preparation programs to qualify to certified teachers and in order to continue to qualify to certified teachers. Throughout the next several months, we will be engaging in a lot of conversation around specific policies for consideration. We do have a series of regional forums scheduled in April, April 13th through 16th, actually, in 4 locations across the state, to have deep conversations focused on specific policy options and implementation considerations in greater detail than we were able to get to today, of course. So we will be sending out invitations to those regional forums for preparation program faculty and also to school system leaders and school leaders, and hope that you will join one of those conversations, whichever one is close to you and convenient to you. We will be communicating that late this week and early next. Sorry, it'll be early next week, not late today. Early next week, so that you can get that on your calendar. As a result of those conversations, we'll continue to develop those policies and have a policy forum in June 18th, where we'll actually present the policy proposal developed based on all of these conversations that we have had with you over the last 9 months and will continue to have over the next several months. We're very, very thankful that you took your time to come today, that you stayed for the entire conversation. We are very much looking forward to announcing the next cohort of Believe and Prepare pilots and to continuing the work, and we hope that you'll continue to join the conversations. Thank you all so much for coming.